Thank you for tuning in to Talkwad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.
Hi there, and welcome to Write It 5 with your host, Mona Lisa. And my guest today, I'm very, very excited. My guest today is Mike Banner. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we've got another multidimensional person. Surprise! Like, that's been the case. I mean, so I'm going to give you guys kind of an intro to who Mike is on the business level. His real life, so to speak, and then
my secret identity.
His secret identity. And then he's going to put on his cape and talk about the amazing writer he is. So Mike is the founder of American CE Institute LLC and National Education Director of Security One Lending. He's been in the mortgage industry for over 30 years. He is an accomplished public speaker and has performed workshops and education classes for thousands of financial advisors on the subject of reverse mortgages. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been in the industry for a very long time, the mortgage industry, and about 7 years ago, got a passion for reverse mortgages, which is a product in this country that is very misunderstood. A lot of bad stuff out there about it, but when you do it correctly, it is just a tremendous help to seniors. Seniors being defined as 62 years old and above, especially the greatest generation, which is my favorite generation by far. And they happen to be in their 80s and 90s right now. And it's an incredible help to them as well. A lot of people in my generation and the generation before me have kind of forgotten that the greatest generation is called that, not as a nickname or, not because of all the great movies that are out there, which there are, like Saving Private Ryan. I can watch that a million times a week. They were the greatest generation because they really were the greatest generation. They did it all. They won the war. They saved the world, whether it was from in Japan in the Far East or in Germany. They came back. They saved the world from communism. And instead of just going, okay, what more do you want from us? We saved the world. They came back in 1945 and built the best country the planet has ever seen. Everything great that's ever happened in this country, from Wall Street to huge companies to heart transplants to the governors, the presidents, the astronauts, the people that walked on the moon, all greatest generation. They just didn't stop.
And that's interesting because we are a culture that throws our elderly away.
Yeah. It's so sad that in this country that, we were just talking before, we can put a computer chip on the edge of a pencil, but we have seniors that are actually outliving their money. And I'm not talking about just starving homeless seniors. I'm talking about our neighbors who are living in a beautiful house with a beautiful house in the driveway, a beautiful car in the driveway, and they've actually outlived their savings. They lived longer than they expected. How terrible of them, huh?
Shame.
Shame on them.
Shame. Because, our longevity is increasing because of medicine and technology that they created.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a cyclical thing.
It is.
And, it's just like when our soldiers come back from the war, there's no open arm embracing, hey,
Mm-hmm.
welcome home. Thanks for your sacrifices. And now let's help you. It's like, no, we're just going to toss you out and with the refuse and pretend like you don't exist and then call you dirty names because you can't function in society.
Right. That's another dramatic change between our generation. We just found out we're the same age. Haha.
Yes.
We just found, that's another dramatic and sad change between our generation and the older generation. I don't want to get political on this because I just don't, or I probably will since I just found out we're doing this for an hour. I thought it was a half hour. So ultimately you will see how, what side of the aisle I'm on. But I don't care whether you believe in this war or not. You have to believe in the soldiers. You have to believe in the men and the women and these people that are on every day, whether it's the Standard News or the cable news or the front of the
Right.
St. Pete Times saying bad things about them. Say anything you want about the current regime, Iran, Iraq, whatever. I don't care. That's America. You have your opinion.
Right.
But like the old saying goes, if you don't stand behind our troops, then have the guts to stand
Stand
in
in
front of
front of
them and
them.
see what happens. Yeah.
Most definitely. Um, so we're going to. I want to read this intro. I
Okay.
was going to have you do this, but I'm going to do it instead because it's a great. I think a huge part about promoting a book is creating the interest to read it.
Hmm.
And when I read when I asked you to send me information, about yourself, about the author, I also got this about the book blurb.
Hmm.
And, having just finished book number 8 in my world, I've never really focused all that much on the blurb. It's like, oh, okay, here's the book and this is what it's about. And, you're going to love reading this and blah. So here it goes. Big men, small men, smart men, strong men, brave men, kind men, rich men, poor men. They can all be different. They can all be real men, and it seems like they all were not that long ago. The men of the greatest generation knew what fortitude meant. They knew what it took to win a war, to win someone's heart. They knew the meaning of words like husband and father and respect. Real men are still around today, but you have to know what to look for. This book makes it clear who they are. And the title of your book is?
A Gift from My Father. Absolutely.
Okay, tell me about the book.
Well, I was kind of blessed to have an incredible father. I really did. He was my best friend from the time I can remember. So I don't know if that's 3 years old or 5 or whatever, until the day he died in his master bedroom in my house, because we lived with each other the last few years of his life. And just a staggering guy, a World War II veteran, Purple Heart, Silver Cluster, Bronze Cluster, was a POW and survived that for 14 months. And we're Jewish, so we're not going to go into the terrors of that, but he survived it. And many people came out of that like with a shunned, I don't want to talk about that. I'm here, but let's not deal with that. Dad, as you can see from the cover of the book, that Dad, just a few days before he left for Europe in 1943, had a smile on his face 24/7 till the time he left us. And he looked at that time in POW camp a little different than most, basically as if I could survive that, I could survive everything. And when he was liberated by Patton's, I either think 3rd or 5th Army from POW camp, he just decided, because he knew he was dead. He said, we all knew we were dead when we landed in enemy territory. But when we were alive and I was being saved, I just decided this was the greatest country in the world, and that's it. And he just never changed his mind. And that's how he lived his life. Just as the book says, he was an entrepreneur before people were using that word.
Right.
He had a very get it done attitude before Nike was created and we're using the yes, you
Just
have to
do
get
it.
it done, just do it. He lived a just do it lifestyle. And I was fortunate enough to be brought up by this great man. And he never was a millionaire. He never became governor, but we never wanted for anything. Dad just believed if you want something, it's the greatest country in the world, go work for it and get it. And anything less than that, you were kind of a whiner. Dad didn't want to hear it if it was anything less than that.
Right.
It was a great way to be brought up, and I hope I brought up my children the same way.
And that's, to have that kind of a relationship with a parent is a blessing because, again, that generation,
Hmm.
there's a lot of that missing out there
Yeah.
today. A lot of children that don't have the benefit of a father
Hmm.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a whole battalion of moms out there that have stepped up to the plate
Absolutely.
and filled in, being a single mom. It's like I
Hmm.
had to play both roles for my children. And, I grew up with a dad, but he was never there because he was in the military, and that was
I read that about you.
his
Yes.
life.
Hmm.
That was his wife, his child, his everything. And so I really felt that, growing up, it was imperative that I want my kids to say the same thing about me that you're saying
Hmm.
about your dad
I
in
bet you they
20
do. I
years,
bet you they do now.
They do. They tell me I'm a great mom and I did a
Hmm.
great job. So,
Hmm.
but to hear you say that about your dad, it just, I get warm inside because it's like my kids say that about me,
Hmm.
and you learn from that.
You do. You absolutely do. I mean, what is today, March 10th?
Yes.
So Dad's been gone, let's see, 7 years, 9 months, 5 days, but who's counting? And still, when I do my public speaking, which I do constantly in my career,
Right.
not actually promoting the book, I'll start doing that soon, but it's only been out about 6 weeks. I still see my father in every crowd that I give a speech, because when I used to start my public speaking, I'm a frustrated comedian like all Jewish men from New York. That's a law. If you're a Jewish man from New York, you're part Jerry Seinfeld, you're part public speaker. That's just the way it is. I always see my dad out there with that smile on his face, because he always got a kick out of me talking to 50 or 100 people. Took a few years. Sometimes I'd see Dad and I'd get sad. Now I
Right.
see Dad and I just smile. Took a little while for that to happen. But yeah, good moms and good dads should be plentiful in this country. And for some strange reason, they're not. There's a lot of great moms and dads out
Right.
there. But I think you get older, you get wiser. And, I have 4 children, a stepdaughter, 2 daughters, and a son. And, when you're brought up with daughters, and 2 ex-wives, by the way. So a lot of women in my life. And when you see that going on today, the reason why women have been, quote, forced to adjust, I'm going to say this, it's going to make a lot of man enemies, but I don't care, because I like women better, is because men have just forgotten how to act. I mean, where's the chivalry? Where's the manners? A few of the things that I approach in this book.
Right.
If my dad ever heard me say I went out on a date and I went Dutch, which I would never do, my dad would kill me. Dutch? What's Dutch? If you have a date, be a man, pay for it. That's not chauvinism. I've had women of the 90s and of the 21st century go, I make as much money as you. I know you do.
Right.
It's chivalry. It's manners. I've be surprised how many times I actually open a car door for a woman and they look at me and go, what are you doing? I go, I'm opening your door. Well, this is just a business lunch. This is not a date. I go, no, it's not a date. I'm opening your door. My dad would flip if I didn't open my door for a woman.
And
What happened to
I
this?
think that got lost in the sense that, women have struggled so hard
Mhm.
to, to be validated.
I'm
And
pulling a Mark Rubio here.
oh
and
yeah,
having a
no problem. To be validated. And so I think
Yeah.
in doing that, there was some level of, well, I don't want to, seem weak
Mhm.
or, why would you open the door for me?
Yeah.
Or, it's manners. And that's
Yeah.
the magic word to me, manners. It
Yeah.
has nothing, and it's not even a gender thing.
No, it isn't.
It's like people having manners with people.
Mhm.
And that generation, and again, every time I do one of these shows, there's this gem I get out of every show.
Mhm.
And it's usually about halfway in, close to the end, because I've had time to process and hear a lot.
Mhm.
I got it from you right up at
Oh.
the jump.
That's not good. We have 48
Right.
more minutes to go, though.
Right.
Is it
There'll be
downhill?
more, I'm
Is it
sure.
downhill
No,
from
no,
here?
it's
Okay.
uphill
All right,
from
all
here.
right,
It's we're rising. But the whole idea of that generation and what they have accomplished and what changed during that time,
Huh.
and they're the ones that created that change, because we're so steeped in technology right now. It's like we're
Mhm.
in this 10-year window of CDs and DVDs and computers and laptops and iPads and
iPads,
iPhones
yeah.
and all that stuff, and it's like, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing in the world. But when you really stop and go like 1925 to 1995-ish in
Mhm.
there, and think about what transpired in that time frame,
Yeah.
far surpasses
Oh,
what's
yeah.
happened in the last 10 years.
You could really even narrow that down to, like, 1920 to 1970.
Se-
To the day the first
seven-
man worked on the moon.
Right.
To July 20th, 1969. It's I think my generation, that was sort of like 911, but in a positive way.
Right.
All of my generation remembers where they were
When
when
yeah.
Armstrong stepped onto the moon. But if you have to figure, a little more than 100 years ago, we were riding horses. Just a little more than 100 years ago. Then it went to cars. Then it went to planes. Then it went to breaking the speed of light. Excuse me, speed of sound. Speed of light is Captain Kirk in my imagination. That's
That's
the
next
voices.
year.
Yeah, we'll do that next year. It's breaking the speed of sound, orbiting the Earth, walking on another planet, nuclear fission, curing many things of cancer. We've done more in the last 100 years. I don't care what anybody says, than we have in the last 5,000 years.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it came from the greatest generation, and they're still doing it today. It's really amazing. What's so ultimately and profoundly sad is the greatest generation is dying at the rate of 6,000 per day. The average person in the greatest generation right now is 91 years old. And thank
Wow.
God for longer lifespans. There's
Yes.
still some years left.
Right.
But soon that incredible generation will be gone. And what's amazing about that generation, they just never stopped. They created the next generation who actually made more money, opened more companies, had the most home ownership. They broke every record that their parents had because of the way their parents brought them up to
Right.
work, to be educated, to be honest. And then after that generation, even though a lot of great things happened the last few generations, seems like the morality, and it's easier to do something over the internet than look at you and shake your hand and do it. I
Right.
think we've lost something with all this technology. I love it. I use it. You were just in my office. There's 4 screens, and everything we do is internet related. But losing a lot of the personal stuff, and I think that's hurt everybody.
And I feel that as much as we've had these transitions and changes over the past 10 or so years, that's the biggest part of the
Yeah,
transition is that loss of a human connection.
absolutely.
And I think because of that, we're so disassociated from each other and
Yeah.
so desensitized to what's going on in the world
hmm
because you can see it on a screen and go, "Oh God, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's really bad."
Yeah.
You know,
Next.
but go downtown into the inner city and
hmm
look at that kid on the street corner that's hungry or, and it suddenly you can't
Yeah.
disconnect yourself from it. You have to feel
hmm
something
Yeah, that's so
very
true.
real and very valid.
hmm
And I think everybody should take a field trip into the world,
Yeah.
out into their neighborhoods and into
Out of their
areas
world.
out of their world,
Yeah, that's
out
they
of
need.
their world.
Everybody
Yeah.
should do that. Nothing is.
Without their phone, without their
hmm
iPads, without it, just anything.
hmm
Just park your car, stick your key in your pocket, and take a walk and
Yeah.
look at what's going on around you, and tell me that you can't, regain some sense of humanity
Yeah.
and caring about other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all do things with a relevant type of something to compare to. That's
Right.
how the human mind works. There's good, there's bad, there's light, there's dark. How many days do you have just a bad day? Bad day in business, bad day in this. This person's aggravating you. You need a new tire for your car, whatever. And you go to the mall and you have lunch, and you see a child in a wheelchair, and you go, "What am I complaining about? Life
Yes.
is so freaking
Yeah.
good. What am I, a moron?" And it's sad that you have to see an older person in a wheelchair or a child in a wheelchair or maybe somebody with some sort of handicap to go, wait a minute, my life is so good. I think we were just talking before the radio show. I do not deal with any more first world problems. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear that your cell phone dies.
Describe what you mean by
Yeah.
first world
I get
problems.
calls all the time. I'm late because, the battery on my cell phone died and I couldn't call you. Don't want to hear it. That's a first world problem. I stopped. Yeah, I ran out of gas. Do you have money in your pocket? Yeah. And you ran out of gas? Are you a moron? First world problem. There's people out there starving. There's people out there hurting. People out there that need medical attention. And we complain if we can't get a doctor's appointment quick enough. Ooh. This is another good one. My deductible was too high on my insurance. Thank God you have
Have
insurance.
insurance.
Shut up. Stop whining. Take your antibiotic and go back to work. This is ultimately, you and I were just talking about this. I'm going to end up on some station ranting about something because people's first world problems really get to them. And it's like I said, when I was a kid, if I didn't finish my food, my mother would say, there's kids starving
Yes.
in Ethiopia. You should eat that. There's kids starving in Ethiopia. You and I are sitting here in northern Pinellas County. We could drive 10, 15 minutes in any direction and find starving children.
Absolutely.
Downtown Clearwater, Largo, parts. And that's unbelievable. It's just ridiculous. And people are complaining about their first world problems. Disney World, the lines were so long. Give me a break. Give me a break. Get a
Yeah,
life.
I try to do some kind of feel good thing before I come to the show. And I went on Facebook and somebody had posted this video of a young woman um who she's all tatted up and everything. And so when you first see her, if you don't know what the video is about, you first see her and you're like, yeah, there you go,
Mhm.
tattoos and blah blah da da da. And it was about her getting an ocular implant, so she was hearing for the first time. And when they put it up there to tune it, and she finally heard sound,
Mhm.
she just broke down and started sobbing.
Oh.
And she was the first time she was going to hear her husband's voice.
Mhm.
And I'm just sitting there thinking, ooh, yeah, I don't have any problems.
Yeah. Isn't that unbelievable?
I don't have any
Really?
problems
Yeah.
because that kind of technology is, when I see that kind of technology, it makes me feel really good.
Hmm.
When I see, we came out with DVD and everybody's like, "Oh my God, quick, buy DVD player." My first one was $400.
Hmm.
Quick, buy DVD player, buy DVDs. Oh my God, technology. And then not a year later, they come out with freaking Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I just transferred all my VHS
Yeah.
to DVD.
You're talking to somebody that just recently was listening to the Doobie Brothers on 8-track. So,
Right?
yeah. Yeah. I have like 3,000 8-tracks I'll sell for $1. You
Yeah,
know, it's,
see? And that, the technology moves so fast. I don't think we have time to keep up with it. We don't have time to transition with it.
hmm
And so we become automated. As our world and our lives become automated, we fall into that whole idea. Like, okay, books.
hmm
I am a true believer in holding a book,
Yeah, me too.
in turning pages, going into the bookstore and picking it up, that new book smell, and you're the first hands on the book, and you're just like, ooh, it's sensual. It's
Yeah.
a love affair.
Kids today don't even do
Okay, I have a Nook. I really do.
that. Hmm.
And my daughter bought it for me and said, "Mom, it's just so much better. You won't have 5,000 books in your house. You just have your Nook and you plug it in and you can read it." I
Mhm.
still have 5,000 books in my
Yeah.
house. I have the Nook and I like it and it's great. But when I do a book signing, I cannot sign your Nook.
That's right. Well, you can, but it'll ruin the screen. I mean,
Right.
if they
But
really want it.
And to me, I love having a book that has the author's signature. To me, it's a sense of connection.
It is. Yeah,
So a gift from my father.
Mhm.
Where can people buy it?
They should go to www.tate, Tate, publishing.com. Tate Publishing was nice enough to publish an unknown author's book. And when you get on there, just search for a gift from my father, and up will pop my screen, and buy as many as you possibly can.
And how much are your books?
They're only $8.99. I'd like to say, as I said to you, I'd like to say that this is some sort of deep novel and it's going to change your life. But actually, you're going to read this 60-page book in about 20 minutes. At any age, it's going to remind you of your brother or your father or your grandfather or your uncle. It depends on what age you are. It's going to make you smile on some pages. It might bring a tear to your eye on another. But it's very quick reading. It's very light.
But you know what? It's the kind of reading that, yes, you may be able to go through and read it in a half an hour, but you're going to keep going back and reading, individual things that are in here. So I'm going to have you read some of these for us.
All right. Well, probably my favorite one, which some of these actually some people don't like. I've actually read
for
it. Yeah,
shame. Like we care as writers. Don't like it, doesn't matter.
You don't like it, don't buy the book.
That's right.
Even better, buy the book and throw it away.
Throw it away.
Just throw it away. That would really piss
or
me.
give it away.
Really bother me. Yeah. One of the ones that my dad brought me up with, and I've brought my daughters and my son up with it, and I know they believe it. And when we say it, even at family dinners or anywhere, people don't like it. Is The Greatest Generation believed it's not the thought that counts; it's the action that counts. And let me give an example before some soft-hearted person starts calling in and screaming at us. If you're not able to help somebody, but you wish you could, that's a nice thought. In that case, it's the thought that counts. But if you're on a street, walking along, and you see an elderly person or whoever, someone who needs some help, you're quite capable of helping. You know you can. You have the time to, but you don't. The thought just makes you a bigger moron. It doesn't mean anything. There are so many people out there, "Oh, I really would like to give to cancer care." "Oh, really? Can you afford it?" "Oh, yeah." "How much did you give last year?" "Well, I never really got around to it." It's not the thought that counts. It's the action that counts. Without the actions, the thoughts are pretty useless. And again, you get back to The Greatest Generation. They thought of walking on the moon. They did walk on the moon. This whole idea of it's the thought that counts just drives me crazy. A couple of the other favorite ones, again, I'm giving you the more unpopular ones up front because I'm hoping there's people out there going, maybe that's right. I used to coach a bowling high school team, and my dad was a professional bowler in the 60s and 70s, and I bowled a lot, and that was our thing. I'm the only Jewish mortgage banker in the world that doesn't play golf. I bowl. So, and I, in my involvement with children, because I do a lot of volunteer working and coaching, there's always those parents that they're not here to win. They're just here to have a good time. Well, the truth is I want everybody to have a good time. But if you're going to compete, there's the word, you have to compete to win, whether you're 5 years old or 55 years old. And I see so many children today, and they're good children, and they're great parents too. Don't get me wrong; I'm not bitching about the parents. Don't worry. It doesn't make a difference what the score is. It doesn't make a difference if you hit the ball, if you knock the pins down. He's just here. No, he's here on a team to compete. And if you don't compete to win, they're going to get hurt when they go out into the real world at 18 or 20 or 22 to compete for their job or compete for the promotion. And so many people take that as oh, you have to win. That's a terrible attitude. That's not what I'm saying. You have to try to win. If you lose and you've tried as hard as you can, you better go shake the hand of the man that beat you and be a gentleman about it.
Right.
Just be able to go home and say, I tried.
And you will have won.
Yeah, because if you've tried as hard as you can, I don't care whether you win or not, you won.
Right.
And you'll do better the next time. A lot of I think political correctness, and we're going to go into another rant here, has just ruined us. Oh, don't worry, they're not here to keep score. Really, there's a scoreboard. Isn't that interesting? Maybe they should take that down. They're on different teams. Does that suggest something? But whether it's getting the highest score in the class or winning the science fair, it doesn't have to be sports. It doesn't have to be that kind. Try hard. I think a lot of us have lost that. Being in the mortgage business for 30 some odd years, when I run across, it's usually not a woman, it's a man. 20 years ago, you took an application, the odds were pretty good that the man made more money than the woman.
Right.
Now you take an application, it's 50-50 on who's making the most money. And I think that's a great thing. And you come across a husband that's not employed or barely making any money. Really, what do? Well, I have a degree in botany. Botanists out there, I'm not putting this down, I just chose that. Really, and you don't have a job? No, I can't find a job in my field. Did you think about that when you majored in botany? How are you going to support your wife and children? Fortunately, I need to write their mortgage to make a living. I don't say these things out loud. My wife is a registered nurse. She makes 80 grand. My wife is a doctor. So what do? Can't find anything in my field. Oh my God, if my dad was in the room, he'd go, who cares about your field? Get a job at McDonald's. Support your family. Too much, that's not what I really want to do. I don't care what you want to do. Do what you have to do.
Right.
Wanting is a luxury. Do what you have to do.
Right.
So it's, again, that's one of the things I see it all the time in the mortgage business, unfortunately. You write any mortgage? I'm talking to my 300 loan officers out there. You write any loans this month? No. Did you work hard? No. Well, go figure. I wonder why you didn't write. Yeah. Try. And too much of it is coming too easy. Too much is coming with their finger on the mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spoke to 400 of my friends today. They're not friends. You've never even met them. They're a freaking picture on a screen. They don't know you. Get out, talk to somebody. It's infiltrated everything, and it's like everything else. It's a blessing with a two-edged sword.
Right.
One's good, one's not.
Yeah, it is a double-edged.
Sure
So,
do.
read something out of the book for us.
Let's see. I like this. The greatest generation never whined. If something goes wrong, take it on the chin and just keep going. Tony Robbins, who's my favorite motivational speaker, said it the best. The man who is always saying, I should have done that, I should have done this, realizes one day he shit all over himself. You can't stop whining. If you do something wrong, I did it wrong. Over, go forward. I don't like whiners. My dad never liked whiners. We all make mistakes. Just take it on the chin, keep going. What are the well, that one's too confrontational. We won't say that one. Oh, here's one. The greatest generation did judge a book by its cover. You notice the last 20, 30 years, people come up to you and go, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. That's an old cliche. Well, I looked it up because it annoyed me. And the original cliche was, you shouldn't always judge a book by its cover. Now, that's true. I have learned from my middle daughter, who's listening somewhere, Stacy, who has many tattoos, that you can't judge a book by its cover. When Stacy fell in love with tattoos, she would bring her friends over who had similar lifestyles, and I would immediately have some sort of a negative connotation filled with tattoos, filled with piercings, yada, yada, yada. What's wrong with these kids? What's wrong with their parents? And then you get to know them, and they're nurses, and they're nice people, and they're teachers, and they're good moms. And you realize that you shouldn't always judge a book by its cover. But you want to know something? This is controversial. Usually you can. Usually when you're walking down the street, and I'm not talking about tattoos or this or that, and you see a certain type of person, you shouldn't judge them. But if they're using language, if they're dressed so ostentatiously, you're getting mad at people that look at them. I was in the mall, our mall close by here, I'd say about 6 months ago, and I noticed people staring in a little direction and say, hey, you're only human, so you stare. And it was what probably was a nice young man. I don't know. He was about 6'3", and he had purple hair, and he had a long jacket. It was 90 degrees out, but he's wearing a long jacket. The purple hair is spiked up to here, and the earrings and the gauged ears. And he was mad at the people around him for looking at him. And usually I don't involve myself. I really don't. But when I walk by, I look too. I didn't stare because he could be, for all I know, he's the next, person that's going to split an atom. I don't know. But I looked, and he unfortunately made the mistake of going, what are you looking at? And I went, I'm looking at a 6'3" rooster. I mean, if you didn't want people to look at you, why would you do that to yourself and then come to a mall? You're going to be looked at. Doesn't mean you're not a nice guy. I said that to him. But people are going to look, and I think you knew that when you left the house today. And he actually looked at me and went, yeah, that's true. I mean, be proud of what you are. But you know what? And this is what the book says. When you go into a library, there's like 100,000, 500,000 books in a library. They all have covers. And if you want a book about flowers, you don't pick up a book with a skull and crossbones on it. You can judge a book by its cover. You shouldn't always. And once you get to know somebody, you should judge them by their actions. But it's not so bad to judge a book by its cover. It really isn't. That's gotten a bad rap. As long as you don't hold that against that. You can look and go, you know what? I'm here with my baby, and I don't know if I want to walk on the same side of the street of those three guys dressed like that. That's protection. Doesn't mean that they're not 3 off-duty cops. I'm not saying it's bad.
And that's the judging a book by its cover is, I think, from being, A, a woman, and B, biracial. I've been judged by tattoos.
Oh, you got it all going.
I've got tattoos everywhere. And I actually had a new one done on Friday and went out to lunch with.
I saw your new one on your post.
We went to lunch, and Pete, I can tell when someone looks at me, and I've had older women my age, approach me in the store and go, "Shame on you," and I'm like, "Shame on me for what? You with those, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're too old to be doing that, and the tattoos and and I just kind of look at them and I say, and it goes back to the judging a book by its cover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a professor at a university. I teach.
Mm-hmm.
I have a master's degree. I'm educated. I've published 8 books. I am very active in the community and deal with bringing awareness to rape culture and domestic violence and things. My cover says nothing about what's underneath it. And the guy in the mall that's 6 foot tall with the purple hair, I'm down with it. I'm like, hell yes, be an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Do what makes you feel good.
I'm good with it too.
And in the end, he may be the guy that splits the atom.
That's right.
Okay. But yes, as when you stand out like that, you do have to be okay.
You can't have a thin
with
skin.
People looking at you.
Yeah.
Because you're different.
Yeah.
And for me, I can't take off my brown skin and be something other than a brown person.
Right.
But I've been judged for a very long time based on, well, you're black, so that automatically means this, and this. But, that's something I can't change. But if I go out and I'm tatted up and, I've got a tank top on and somebody walks by me and goes, it's like, well, okay.
Yeah. Shame
I'm sorry.
On that. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It makes you uncomfortable, but you know.
That person needs to get a see, I think when somebody gives you a double take, that's okay. But if they go shame on them. I mean, you should be allowed. It should be against the tut should be against the law.
Yeah.
You can look. I mean, when I see a Ferrari drive by, I give it a second look.
Absolutely.
Second looks are not disrespectful. The facial expressions, the comments, and quite frankly, and I know you don't, you can't get mad at a second look because you've chosen.
Exactly.
Again, Stacy's probably smiling as I say this, but I've learned when and Stacy and I go out to dinner,
people are going to look.
People look, and and sometimes I get mad because sometimes they look and they smile at me because it could be somebody my age and they probably have a daughter with tattoos. Or sometimes I see them go, and sometimes I go, well, "What's your problem?" I mean, she's a great woman, she's a great person, she's got a great heart. Who are you shaking your head at? It is wrong, but again, if you're going to be different, and different is anything, expect some attention and take that attention as it comes. Don't get mad at it, because if you get mad at it, you don't have really the guts to be different. Cover up. Comb your hair.
You're leaving that negative imprint on somebody's perception of who you are
That's right.
if you react that way.
Yeah. And it's not
So,
good.
like you said, there's, 5,000, 5 million, whatever books in the library,
They all have covers.
and they all have covers and
Yeah.
they're all, worth a read. Or if
Hmm.
it's not something you want to read, then you just walk and you pick a different book.
That's right. Pick a different book in life. Just stop giving everybody else hassles.
I love metaphors. You can
Yes.
tell writers are talking
Yeah,
because the
that's right.
metaphors are flying.
Um,
So curious, what is your writing process?
oh,
Do
you're
you
gonna
like do you like do the incense and the candles and
Yeah.
then, and
My writing process is on the commercials when I'm watching repeats of NCIS. This was kind of easy for me. I do a lot of writing. My articles about reverse mortgage are published in financial magazines and trade magazines, so I'm not new to writing. This really started with the eulogy for my father when I wanted to, say something. Actually, it's very hard even as a public speaker to talk at that. In fact, that
Right.
was probably the first time ever I didn't speak. Our rabbi read this for me. I couldn't speak. Probably the only times in the world that you'll hear those words coming out of my mouth. I couldn't speak. Those 3 words don't come out of my mouth. But as I was writing it, actually, I really did realize that it just wasn't a tribute to my dad, what I was writing. It was a tribute to every one of his friends, everybody that he grew up with, the local police captain. They were together in World War II. The principal of my high school. They were together in World War II. It really was a tribute. So I traveled to do my speaking in my professional career. It really started on commercials when I was watching TV. It started on planes when I had nothing to do. And I remember Dad saying, a real man has a firm handshake. So I'd write that down. And then, put it on the laptop. And then a few days later, something would hit me. And I'd remember my dad going, look someone in the eyes when you talk to them. If you're not looking them in the eyes, they're lying to you. Walk away. I'd write that down. And before you know it, I had about 50 or 60 of them. So I put it together on Word, and I actually showed it to a few of the publishers of the financial magazines, just as a curiosity. What do you think about this? I'm thinking of writing a book. And what was kind of incredible, it was about 2 years ago. These were usually women, and they were younger women in their 30s. And not only did they come back and go, Michael, my father and my grandfather lived by these rules, but a few of them came back and said, I'd like to find a man that lives by these rules because my boyfriend sucks. So when they got so positive, I showed it to a few other people. So I put it together, nothing fancy at all. And I put it out to a few different publishers. I bought the book, what is it? The Unknown Publisher's Guide.
Yeah.
And I put it out to a few people and a few showed interest. But here's my plug for my publisher. Tate Publishing specializes in unknown authors. I went to their website. They had a representative call me. And quite frankly, they got some real raw material. They got some incredible pictures, and they made it beautiful. I'd like to take credit for that, but I put down the words, and they made it marketable. One of the four of the things that are in here are kind of incredible. When my grandmother died, my father's mother, she was 97, incredible woman. When we were cleaning out her house, or when the brothers, where there were 4 brothers, 3 were in World War II, 1 was in the Korean War. When they were cleaning out the house, they found in cellophane, in absolute perfect shape, the 4 wires that my grandmother got for the Secretary of War. The first one said, your son Al was shot down and is presumed dead, and just in perfect shape. 5 days later, one that the American Red Cross has identified your son Al, and he is a German POW. The third one, 14 months later, your son has been liberated by American forces and will be home soon. And the 4th one from my dad, Mom, Dad, I'm on my way home, love you, Al. And those were in
Wow.
perfect shape. So we have miniature copies of those wires in the back of this book. But when you look at that and you see it, I mean, how many moms back then got that letter, but it didn't say they were identified and on their way home. It just said they were gone. I guess it's why I can, channel scan and watch Saving Private Ryan 4,000 times.
Right.
How many women, how many parents? And of course, my father and his 3 brothers, they weren't drafted. They enlisted. They fought for America, and they were proud of it. So he was just a cool man, and these rules deserve to be lived by. And it's amazing how many times I will bring this up, even one of my financial planning seminars or realtor seminars, when I'm talking about reverse mortgages, and talk about manners and keeping your word and do as I say and not as I do. Mean what you say what you mean. It's amazing. People, I'd say 50 and above, go, I try to live my life that way. And people like 25 to 50 going, Yeah,
Are you
it's a little
kidding me? What?
old-fashioned. What's old-fashioned about it? And why
Yes.
do you shake hands like a 12-year-old girl? I don't understand this. We need these rules back because, this country of ours who, like my dad, I'm about as patriotic as I can be. You don't like this country, get the hell out. We have more problems than we've ever had before right now. The left and the right are so separated. I don't want to get into that. And still, with all our problems and our ridiculous debt and 2 wars going on, we are still the greatest country the world has ever known. People are still kicking, screaming, fighting, swimming, jumping, digging tunnels to get into this country. We are still the American dream, even though we're in some rough shape right now. Let's bring back some of the old morals. Let's start living by our word again. Let's start helping the guy next to you. Still doesn't mean you don't do good for yourself. That's okay. I'm a capitalist. Oh, am I a capitalist?
Right.
But share a little of it, and I think some of that takes age too. Would I've been saying this in my
Well,
20s?
yeah.
Probably not. I think there's some, what do they say? Wisdom is wasted, or something like that.
Well, it is true that as you get older, I know as the years have gone by, it's, I had those moments where I was like, oh, it's just, the world is messed up.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and I look at it now and go, yeah, the world is messed up. It is.
Yeah,
It's all
it
messed
is.
up. But, I personally feel that a big part of that is that we don't care about each other.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And there's just so much animosity for humanity
Hmm.
between, there's just always something to hate.
Yeah.
And there's always something to be angry about. And there's always something to be condescending about. And there's always something. And it's like, it saddens me that it takes a catastrophe to bring people together. The tsunami, the earthquake, 9/11,
9/11.
the Murrah Center, why does it take that for people to go, oh my gosh, this is against all of us. And,
Yeah.
3,000 people died today. And, oh my God, this is horrible. And what can we do? And let's go to their aid. And we're all going to get on planes and we're going to go to Haiti because they've had an earthquake and we're going to help people. And then the media stops reporting on it and then it just
Wow.
goes away. And it's like, okay, everybody go home now
Hmm.
because, there's still all these people in Haiti that are, the diseases and the famine and all of it. And the media doesn't show that to us anymore because they're
No.
waiting for the next big thing.
The disaster is what sells the newspapers and
It
gets the
is.
cable
It
writers.
is. And
And it's so sad.
one of the classes I teach at university classes I teach is mass media and society. And I have learned so much as an instructor
Mhm.
for that class. And I teach it in a way where I communicate with my students so they can communicate back with me so I can kind of get an idea of where their heads are. And, I look at them and go, oh, so, I went to see Maya Angelou a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
And so it was on a Wednesday night. I canceled my class Wednesday. And the following Thursday, I had a class and I went in and I said, oh, Maya Angelou, blah, blah, blah. And blank.
Yeah.
And the following Wednesday, I went into class and I was like, oh my gosh, it was the most amazing experience of my life. I became a writer because of her. And she talked about this. And they're looking at me with these blank stares. And I said, do you guys know who Maya Angelou is? And they're like, no. Is she like a
Google it.
musician? Or...
Yeah, Google it, will you?
And I'm like, oh, how can you not know who Maya... And so I just started kind of throwing things out at them, like, to me, influential people in the
Absolutely.
past, 4 or 5 decades.
They don't know them.
And they're looking at me going, oh, is that a band? Or,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah.
So when I go into my class, I look at my students and go, hey, watch this movie or check out this or look into this or, and I can see some of them furiously scribbling notes like they're going to really do it. And they do.
Yeah. And they're amazed at what they find when they Google something
Wow,
and it
that's
turns
really
out to be
cool.
important.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned 911, which is, our generation's, I guess, Pearl Harbor, let's face it.
Right.
Until 911, Pearl Harbor was the worst day in this country's history. And you can't say anything good about 911. You just can't. But if you were forced to say something good, is for quite a while, it made this country one again. Because
Yes.
this tragedy happened on September 11th. And on September 12th, it didn't make a difference if you were black, white, Republican, Democrat, left, right. We were Americans and we were pissed. And we're not
Yeah.
going to let this happen. Every radio station, the cable stations that were on opposite sides were we. There
Well,
was
we went from I and me to we and us.
That's right. And suddenly, again, we're a nation, best nation in the world, that becomes so apathetic so quick. A mere, of course, it's been, 13 years now, 12, 13 years. But even a few years later, I travel so much. I'm in an airport and you hear a businessman, a smart businessman, complaining about security. Have you already forgot what stop complaining? What do you think they're here for? Now, it is a pain in the butt sometimes, but you're complaining about security. Do you remember 911? It's amazing how apathetic, I won't say pathetic, some people are pathetic. It's amazing how apathetic we have become about what's really going on. And again, the only good thing about 911 was we were a nation there for a while.
So I'm curious. A lot of everything that's in the book is about the thought processes that were going on in the 40s, the 50s.
Yep.
Big transition time for us was the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And the 70s, the end of Vietnam War. The 60s and 70s were huge transition times.
Yeah, they were.
40s and 50s were like, okay, we're fighting for whatever and we're going to get it together. And to me, at that time, everything that had to do with the arts was very, 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 very pronounced.
Yes.
The written word, just the arts in general. We have a lack of that now.
We do. I blame that on the 60s parents, by the way. I know people laugh when I say that.
Well, yeah.
That's not us. That's not us.
That's not us.
That's a generation older than us.
We've cut. There's been such a cut in creativity and the arts and expression. And I think a lot of it has to do because of the technology we have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But putting out a book about a generation that really was fundamental in shaping a lot of where we are today.
Yeah.
Whether or not we embrace it, it's still there.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is we don't embrace it, but it is still there. It is the foundation. Have you thought about, going on to book 2? Because, books are like tattoos. Once you do one, you can't stop.
I think the second one's going to be more serious. I mean, this one actually gives a dad rule, a greatest generation rule, and then it gives a few lines of what I think is the comparison of today. This is pretty lighthearted, and it is a fun 20 minutes. I have an idea for a second book. You're right. It is addicting. I always said, unless this one sells, unless it's successful, I'm not going to do another one, but I'm probably going to do another one. And a book that changed my life, really and truly, I can't tell you how many times I read it, was The Greatest Generation by Tom Brokaw. I mean, that was just the most incredible book, because it really showed how great The Greatest Generation was. And I credit Tom Brokaw for that. And I think there is some similarities right now between the incredible men and women that are serving today in an all-volunteer armed services. And I don't want to get too political, but going against an enemy today that doesn't go by the Geneva Convention or Red Cross, will put a bomb on a woman or a child or cut someone's head off. This is not the wars of the past. This is a very different war. And the incredible young men and women that are fighting this for us, these are staggering people. And as you mentioned, they're coming back home, not to ticker tape parades and thank yous. I know their families are, and their neighborhoods are probably thanking them and loving them. But in many cases, they're coming home to protest. And why were you even there? And what they were there because they love this country. I think this generation may have the ability to be the next greatest generation, because they're coming home to a country that is torn by recession. We really are. That is so politically split. The right and the left have never been far away. And you have great, organizations like the Wounded Warrior Foundation. Some of these people are coming back to real problems. And I read about some of these people that are coming back and doing incredible things. So I think the next book will not be light. It won't be 50 pages. It might be a couple of hundred. And if the rest of my career is going well and I have the time, because that's another thing people don't realize. I've even had people in the last 8 weeks go, "Oh, you wrote a book. Are you going to retire?" I go, "Yeah." Oh, yeah.
That's a misconception, people. I've written 8,
Yeah.
and no.
Yeah. I've sold tens of books. I'm going to retire soon. Yeah. I have a friend who's a comedian that says he has enough money to live the rest of his life as long as he dies by Tuesday. Yeah, that's just pretty much that's my situation. But no, I think the next book really is with some help. I hope I'd like to find maybe 6 or 8 of these incredible young men and women that are coming back and see what they're doing today, because they are incredible men and women. And I'd like to see some of the positive things, because there are positive things.
And I one thing that too is different about this war, the armed forces now, is the role women play.
Yes. Oh yeah.
There are mommies left and right going off to war and leaving their children behind,
That's
much
right.
like daddies did back in Vietnam. My father went to Vietnam twice. Um, and I think there is a sense of people not really processing the idea
hmm
that we have women that are going
And
to
putting their
war
lives on
and
the
putting
line.
their lives, and they're in the Humvees with the they're on the
hmm
front lines. And I feel that there's this sensitivity when it comes to writing about that. And to me, I would love to interview
Me
women,
too.
mommies and sisters and daughters, and it's very different. I
It
feel
is.
for a female in a situation like that, because there are other things that have to be taken into account
That's right.
if you become a POW.
That's exactly right.
So I think your idea of approaching the next writing project along the lines of talking to these warriors that are coming back here. To me, that's a great read, because I don't think we really fully understand. I remember when my dad came back from Vietnam, and
hmm
they called him a baby killer, and
Yeah.
there was no ticker tape parade then either.
Well, and I know we don't have much time left, but I have to say it because, because I read about you, and I know your dad was in Vietnam, and you just mentioned it. Vietnam, the people coming back from Vietnam is probably one of the only black marks that this great country should be ashamed of, because they were heroes, like the World War II veterans, like the Korean War
Right.
veterans. They were
Yes.
such heroes, and this, not just the protesters, the country itself did not treat these heroes coming home. And I will say, because my dad was involved with the VA,
Right.
right now, there's not a better place to be a veteran in the world than this country. Veterans are taken care of. You just have to make it to the door of your VA administration. The VA here in Florida, I'm familiar with the VA in New York. They do wonderful things. But we didn't treat your dad's generation correctly. If I had to pick a bad mark on this country, that would be way up there, because the Vietnam people, who, by the way, are the people that today, that's our today.
That's our
That's our
generation
parents.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just not right. So, I think we're making up for it. I think we're doing much better. Again, there's there's lots of local parades, for the people coming
Right.
home from
Right. I see
Afghanistan.
banners always in Dunedin
Yeah,
hanging
I
up,
s- and in
welcome
airports,
home.
in
Yeah.
the airports around the country, it just warms my heart when soldiers are walking through and strangers are doing this.
Yeah.
That's what should have happened.
Well, and I honestly think that with the passion that you have for this subject, that, approaching that as your next book is definitely, um, it will be a project of passion.
It will.
And I definitely look forward to reading it, because I want to know. I think a lot of us want to know.
Mhm.
I like the idea that you have a book with, it's positive, but it's educational. It's like, hey, this is old school way to think. It's okay to think old school way.
Mhm.
It's almost like, when you read something and you go, oh, well, back in 1945 or
That's right.
1950, things, and my kids used to joke, oh, it's not going to be that I walked 7 miles to school in the snow speech, is it? It's like
7 miles
it's
one
one
way
way.
with no shoes. Yes, that was just terrible.
And 5 cents for lunch money, and it's like, no, it's not really about that. It's about the fact that every generation has the struggle for the next generation and the next generation, and there's always something that you're struggling to accomplish and achieve.
Yeah.
And the written word, to me, is the most powerful
It
tool
always has been.
we have. It is mightier than the sword. It's
Oh,
mightier than anything.
It always has been.
I
Although
mean, you can lift, you can
our
tear
sword,
down.
though, has become our keyboard and our screen, and I think that's a little bit of.
know,
It's
I
a great
know.
thing, because you can reach people, but it's not
I
in some ways.
know.
I think, again, these last few generations. I mean, God love them. The .coms, they've done things that are incredible. They're
Right.
incredible people, that but they just a bunch of them that don't think they can do anything wrong. I remember the first time my dad actually caught me smoking pot, and I was like, oh my God. And he just looked at me and he went, do you think we didn't smoke pot when we were kids? We were just smart enough not to tell everybody. Your generation is out going, look at us. We did all the same things you did. We were just smart enough not to blast it out on the internet or say it in a large group. And I went, you smoke pot? Because we all smoke. What, are you stupid? Your generation has to tell everybody they do it.
There is that whole thing going on now out there with like reveal it. And I have a Facebook page. Everything's out there.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how I feel today, and blah blah. And it's like, okay, well, I'm using the words to try to affect.
Yeah.
I'm using the words to try to create something, some thought process, something.
Yeah.
So again, where can people get the book?
Go to www.tatepublishing.com and type in a gift from my father.
Why don't you read us a couple more outtakes there? We have a few more minutes, right? About 2 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes. Booyah.
Right. Okay, this was one of my favorite ones. The greatest generation isn't late. People that are late just kill me, and they killed my dad too. If you don't have any respect for your own time, at least have some respect for the other person's time. Being on time was one of my father's biggest peeves. It was not one of my mother's. They were married for over 50 years, and Mom never was on time for anything. And every time they had an argument about it, I would laugh because it was like the first time they were arguing. Finally, I just said to Dad, I was probably 13, why don't you just tell her that the time is an hour before? You know she's going to be late. But even today, when I interview somebody or if I have a class or an appointment, why were you late? Oh, there was traffic. Really? Rush hour, and there was traffic. You never considered that. Don't be late. Be early. So that was one of his big things. And there's just a couple of the minor ones that are still so true today. When I meet somebody, and again, it's probably judging a book by its cover, man or woman. I mean, you and I just shook hands an hour ago, and I meet somebody, especially a man. I go, hi, how do you do? And he's looking down, and he puts his hand out, and it's like a wet fish. I have an instant, I won't say dislike for the man. That's not nice. But I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do business with him. He's not looking me in the eye, and he doesn't have a firm handshake, which means he has no conviction, and he's probably lying. And that was, my father was so black and white about that. And again, being black and white about things offends people in today's world. You have to be politically correct. And I don't want to offend people. That's wrong.
No.
I don't,
The whole politically correct thing, that's something that does, if you're a politician, you don't have to be politically correct. You're allowed to be a complete moron.
Yeah, on both sides. Only we have to be politically correct.
Yeah, we have to be politically correct because you definitely don't want to, make yourself look bad because you stated something that you feel in plain words. No. You need to sugarcoat, make it nice, not offend.
Yeah.
But yet, this past election, like I could do, and I'm tempted to do a show about this past election and how women, what role women played in the election and how, women were negated and berated and degraded and whole bunch of eds going on.
Yeah, there's no doubt about this. These last 8 years, if you want to do that show, I'll do that show with you if you want.
Holy cats.
This last couple elections, and again, I'm trying not to be political, have really shown the worst of our country on both sides, left and right. People always saying to me, because whether you can tell or not, I am a conservative, I'm a Republican, and people keep going, I have friends that go, the liberals have created all the problems in the world. No, the conservatives have created all the problems in the world. What's created all the problems in this world is just one thing. Greed. It's greed.
Greed, yeah.
Everybody goes, Wall Street fell because the greedy conservatives did this and the Republicans did this. And then the Republicans go, no, the liberals did this and they made it too easy. If you take every major Wall Street corporation that went down and caused this country to just go boom, half their board of directors were Republican, half were Democrat. Yeah, it was pure human greed. Stop being greedy. There's enough out there for all of us.
Yes,
there's just enough out there.
So again, the book is A Gift from My Father by Michael Banner. Yay! Real book.
Real book, yes.
Real book. Pages. See here?
Yes.
You can fan when you're hot.
You can throw it at people.
That's the coolness about a book.
This costs less than a Frisbee, and you can
I got to tell you, though, you did a big no-no for me with books. One? Like, I revere books.
Yes, I folded a page.
We do not dog-ear pages.
Oh.
So
Well, you
now I'm
should
going to
see-
go in your office and grab a new one.
Yeah,
'cause
do
you
that.
ruined it. You
Oh yeah,
ruined it.
no, I have
No.
to. I have to write an inscription to you, so you need a new
Right?
one. Yeah.
Again, so A Gift from My Father by Michael Banner on
www.tatepublishing.com.
And I want to thank you again for
Thank
being on
you
the
so
show.
much.
It was
Thank you.
amazing. I appreciate it. And I want to remind everybody I have a book signing on March 29th at L Train in St. Pete, downtown on Central and 9th. And it starts at 7 o'clock, and I would love to have you there.
I have a book signing. Can I say a quick?
Yes.
My first book signing, April 13th, Barnes & Noble on Sunset Point Road. It's a Saturday from 1 to 3.
Boom.
Come say hello.
Be there. Support
there.
your local artists. Yes.
Yes.
Checking out. See you guys next week.
Thank you. Very good.